Today's presentation is entitled The Book of the Covenant versus the Book of the Law. Here is another lie our fathers inherited and passed on to us. Please note, I use the true names of our Creator as there is power in His name. Elohim and Lord are titles and is not His name. Yahuwah or Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, it is pronounced as Yahuwah, is our Heavenly Father. Jesus has no meaning. Yahusha means Yah is our salvation. Elohim means mighty one or mighty ones. The real name of our Heavenly Father is Yahuwah. In Paleo-Hebrew, the original Hebrew language, and that Bible translators admit to removing his name over 7,000 times from our Bibles and replaced it with the title Lord in capital letters, L-O-R-D, and God, which is being used for every false god or idol. Now let's get back to our presentation with the title The Book of the Covenant versus the Book of the Law. In the scriptures you find mentioned the Book of the Covenant, and I shorten it to BOC, and the Book of the Law, shorten this to BOL in my presentations. Christianity interprets them as synonymous or the same thing. So does rabbinical Judaism. However, the Book of the Covenant and the Book of the Law are two separate entities, as we will discover in this study. This is the mystery of the Melchizedek. So let's go first to the very beginning of creation, when the Bible states in Genesis 1:27 that Yahuwah created man in his own image. In the image of Yahuwah created he them. Male and female created he them. It also states that the Creator was pleased with what he had created, because we read in verse 31, and Elohim, or Yahuwah, saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Physically, Adam and Eve were perfect creations. They were not created in a state of sinfulness. Yet Yahuwah surely understood that they had the capacity and potential for sin. The Creator did not want to fill the universe with dumb, mindless creatures devoid of willpower. Neither did he want to create mechanical automatons or robots. He could have done that, but he wanted to create sons and daughters, beings with abilities and power like his own. Man was created as a rational, volitional agent. In other words, human beings can reason and they can choose. Yahuwah's desire for human beings is that they would know they are loved by him, and that they would love him in return, and that they would love one another. What are other words for mindless? That means careless, unintelligent, brainless, witless, thoughtless, unthinking, and stupid. Satan the devil, formerly called Lucifer, the light bearer, was also originally perfect according to Ezekiel 28:15. Yet he did what? He rebelled, and in addition deceived one-third of the angels in heaven to join him in this rebellion. The Father knew that this evil, fallen angel would also be tempting men to disbelieve their Creator and commit sin. It only took about 1,500 plus years from the time that Adam and Eve were created and fell into sin for their descendants to become so wicked that it states in Genesis 6:5, every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. This grieved Yahuwah, our Creator, and he determined to blot out men whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals, to creeping things, and to birds of the sky. For I am sorry that I have made them. Genesis 6:7. So he sent a flood to destroy man. However, there was one man by the name of Noah who found favor in the eyes of Yahuwah. In verse 8. Why did he find favor? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Because verse 9 stated that Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time, and walked with Yahuwah. Yahuwah told Noah what he was about to do, and instructed him to build an ark in which he and his family and many land animals could survive the flood, to replenish the earth afterward. In chapter 7, 2-3 it states, of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and its female, and of beasts that are not clean by two, the male and its female, of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. It didn't take very long until the descendants of Noah corrupted themselves again and decided to live together in the great valley of Babel. They appointed the first dictator, and all spoke the same language, Hebrew according to tradition. They then decided to wage war on their Creator and said, we will build a tower to ascend heaven and battle the Almighty. Others explained that they denied Yahuwah's hand in the flood and saw it simply as an act of nature, like some people today. It is said that they were even worse than the generation of the flood. Yet they were not killed, like previous generation, but Yahuwah confused them into now speaking 70 different languages. Now Babel means Babel. They could no longer communicate with each other, so their enormous project was stopped. Between 4 to 500 years after the Tower of Babel, men corrupted themselves again, serving their man-made idols. At this time of great corruption on earth, Yahuwah chose one man by the name of Abraham to be the beginning of a whole new nation that would be called his people, through which he wanted to bless all the families and nations of the earth. He told him in Genesis 12:2-3, "And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee," meaning Abraham, "and curse him that curseth thee," meaning Abraham, "and in thee shall be all the families of the earth blessed." Yahuwah even swore by himself an oath and made an unconditional covenant with Abraham. This is the ultimate goal of Yahuwah, that he selected Abraham, whose name was later changed to Abraham. He told Abraham to leave his home and his relatives and begin traveling. Abraham took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and left his home and began to travel and live in tents. Abraham believed Yahuwah and had living faith, the kind of faith that proves it is real by doing actions. Then in Genesis 14, after the battle of 9 kings, Abraham encounters an interesting individual who, according to the Bible, was both king and priest. This chapter records that Abraham gave a tithe of his booty of war to his priest king. Few mysteries of the Bible have attracted more interest than the mystery of the identity of that priest king by the name of Melchizedek. The question is, who is he? Do we know? Because not much information is revealed about this individual. Now here's the account according to Genesis 14:18-20. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was a priest of the Most High El. And he blessed him, and said, Blessed be Abraham of the Most High El, the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the highest El, which has delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. This mystery figure is a mystery only to us. Abraham, the king of wicked Sodom, verse 21, knew exactly who he was. He could not have been a Canaanite, for the Canaanites were steeped in pagan customs. Canaan was a descendant of Ham, whereas Yahuwah basically chose the descendants of Shem to accomplish his work. We are told in the scripture that Melchizedek was king of Salem. That is the city of Jerusalem today. Salem comes from the Hebrew word meaning peace. That would make Melchizedek the king of peace, according to Hebrews 7:2. The Hebrew name Melchizedek itself means king of righteousness. Hebrews 7:2. The same individual is mentioned in Psalm 110 verse 4 and 6 times in the book of Hebrews. Speaking prophetically of Messiah, David stated, The Eternal has sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. This verse is quoted again in Hebrews 5:6 and verse 10. We are being introduced here to Yahusha, the Messiah, the King of Righteousness, Hebrew Melchizedek, or the Righteous One, who the author of the book of Hebrews identifies as Melchizedek, the righteous king, or the king of righteousness. In Matthew 6:33, we are told to seek first the kingdom of Yahuwah and his righteousness. The Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Israel, always had his people that were preachers of righteousness, and he had several before the flood that were righteous and preachers of righteousness. Noah was one of them, as we read in 2 Peter 2:5. Yahuwah did not spare the ancient world, but preserved Noah the eighth, a herald of righteousness, bringing a flood on a world of ungodly ones. This is from the literal translation of the Bible. Preachers of righteousness. Consider the word the eighth. The eighth from what? Could that be the eighth righteous preacher from Adam? Noah, the eighth preacher of righteousness. Now here is the chronology chart from Adam to Shem, and here down here we see Noah as number 8. The patriarchal line from Adam had consisted of 7 men who were the primary preachers of righteousness in their respective generations. These were Adam, Seth, Enos, Cain, Mahalaleel, Jared, and Methuselah. Enoch is not included since he was translated into heaven, while Jared was still serving in this capacity. Similarly, Lamech is not included because he died before his father Methuselah. So this left Noah to serve as the 8th preacher of righteousness. But only his own family heeded his warnings of the coming judgment, and the word of the ungodly died in the flood. In the original language, 2 Peter 2:5 does not say that there were 8 or 7 others that were saved with Noah, as some translators translated this verse, even though it is true that 7 members of his family were saved in the ark. As mentioned, Noah was the 8th preacher of righteousness from the time of Adam. Noah is the 8th in the line of succession, beginning with Adam, or we could say that he was the 8th Melchizedek. Noah was the 10th generation, however, from Adam. The first generation was Adam, the second Seth, the third Enos, the fourth Kenan, the fifth Mahalalel, the sixth Jared, the seventh Enoch, the eighth Methuselah, the ninth Lamech, and the 10th Noah. The ninth preacher of righteousness, or the ninth Melchizedek priest, according to how the Melchizedek priesthood is outlined in the Torah, will be Shem, the second-born of Noah. Question: why aren't the other kings mentioned by name? Why only Kedorlaomer, according to Genesis 14:17? It's because Kedorlaomer was a descendant of Shem, or Melchizedek, the ninth earthly Melchizedek priest since Adam. But this was hundreds of years before. Kedorlaomer was king of Elam, Genesis 14:1 and 9, and Elam was the son of Shem, Genesis 10:22. Abraham was one of Shem's descendants also, but through Shem's son versagt. Abraham had just killed Chedorlaomer, one of Shem's descendants, to Elam in battle. Can you see there is a family feud going on here? In Genesis 14:18, the context of the story changes to now include Melchizedek, king of Salem, a priest of the Most High. That comes out to give Abraham a blessing. With this blessing comes peace. This also reveals the message of truth about Messiah Yahushua, our king, and Melchizedek, priest today, who comes to bring peace. So let's go back to Genesis 12. Yahuwah meets Abraham to make an unconditional Melchizedek covenant and swears by himself an oath. It states in Genesis 12, 1-2, I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, meaning Abraham, and curse him that curseth thee, again Abraham. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Again, later in Genesis 15:7, Yahuwah repeated his promise, saying, I am Yahuwah that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. Abraham comes back to him with a question, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit this land? He wanted an assurance, a guarantee. So Yahuwah said, okay, you wanted a condition to have a proof that I will do what I say I will do? Go get some animals and cut them into two, and then he makes a conditional Melchizedek covenant with Abraham. It is a death condition attached to the covenant in Genesis 12, meaning now if anyone breaks this covenant, somebody has to die to pay the death penalty. This is all part of the covenant of what Paul talks about to the Ephesians, using the words the covenant of promise in Galatians 3:17. In Genesis 15, you have the conditional covenant with the death penalty condition attached to it. Galatians tells us that the law came 430 years later. Right here we must ask the question, what law? Was there not divine laws in place from Adam onward, through all of these generations up to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Moving forward in time, we find Israel delivered from Egypt. This deliverance was exactly 430 years after the Genesis 15 covenant was given to Abraham. Eventually, the children of Israel and a great multitude of Egyptians arrive at Mount Sinai in Exodus 19. This is the very place where many laws would be spoken from the mount. There are going to be two sets of laws, not one. When Moses went up to the mountain, Yahuwah proposes the following in Exodus 19:46. Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you in unto myself. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. In the verses 7 and 8, the people accepted the proposal, saying, all that Yahuwah has spoken, we will do. Then in chapter 24 of Exodus, they take out the blood and sprinkle the book of the covenant and the altar. Next, the 70 elders and 5 others go part way up to the mountain to have a covenant-confirming meal with Yahuwah. This covenant-confirming meal is also the final event where all agree. No words from the covenant can be removed or changed. Remember, those covenant words were spoken by Yahuwah from the top of Mount Sinai, recorded in a book and named in Exodus 24:7 as the Book of the Covenant. The Book of the Covenant is a final fulfillment of all the Melchizedek promises that are being brought forth from creation in Genesis 1 to when Yahuwah spoke to Abraham in Genesis 12, where he made the unconditional oath to Abraham, then a conditional extension arm in Genesis 15. Israel accepts the Book of the Covenant, and they are betrothed to Yahuwah. They were brought into covenant with him. Moses goes up to the mountain to receive the tables of stone. And what happens? Within 40 days of receiving this, Aaron fashions a golden calf for Israel and the Egyptians. That act alone broke the everlasting covenant that all the people had agreed to 3 times, promising to obey. Moses had not been directly involved with until Yahuwah tells him what is happening at the bottom of the mount in Exodus 32. However, by this time Moses had received many more laws found between Exodus 25 to 31 that have nothing to do with the blood-ratified laws written in the Book of the Covenant and now written on tables of stone, front and back. See Exodus 32:15. These extra laws about a new Aaronic priesthood and a literal sanctuary that was to be raised up were given because Yahuwah knows the end from the beginning. See also Isaiah 46:9-10. These extra laws will be understood as the book of the law. These were added laws due to the almost immediate transgression of following after another Elohim, another God, breaking the everlasting blood-ratified covenant. No wonder Paul pens these words in Galatians 3:19. It, and he means the law, the book of the law, was added because of transgression, till the seed should come to whom the promise was made, and it was ordained by angels in the hand of a mediator. When Paul uses the word law in Galatians 3:19, he is only referring to the book of the law, that portion of Torah from Exodus 24:12 to the end of Deuteronomy that contains any new laws outside of the laws found within the book of the covenant. Please Do not overlook this fact. There are many laws after Exodus 24:12 that link to the laws in the Book of the Covenant only for the purpose to give more detail, not to add extra laws. However, in the New Testament you will find that Paul speaks often about law versus grace. In these instances he is always referring to the book of the law, not the entire Torah. Selah. Pause here to let that sink in. No wonder Paul's writings have been so confusing. If he wants us to keep the law, then why does he say we are not under the law? Selah. Again. He is talking about the temporary laws found in the book of the law between Exodus 24:12 and Deuteronomy 34:12. Think about this. The law wasn't added to the law because of transgression to the law. That makes absolutely no sense. Neither does the Torah being added to the Torah make any sense. The book of the law was added to the broken covenant because of transgression to the everlasting covenant at the golden calf. Then the book of the law was placed in a pocket where? Outside the ark of the covenant. The Greek word translated added is prostitama. I'm sure I don't pronounce it right, from which we get our English word prosthetic. The Levitical law is a prothesis, an added man-made appendage that can never stand in place of a fully functioning body of believers. Ask any amputee if this artificial limb works just as well as the original. So the book of the law was added to assist, but not to take the place of, the book of the covenant. This was necessary because the covenant was broken by Israel's idolatrous actions with the golden calf. We can say that a bomb has gone off with the making of a golden calf and caused Israel to lose its limb. Now a prothesis has been added unto the time of Reformation. The book of the law had an expiration date when the seed should come. And the seed is who? It is Messiah Yahusha, the promised seed. With these things in mind, we could paraphrase Galatians 3:19, but first the question, what are other words for paraphrase? That means to reword, rephrase, restate, restatement, rendering, rewording, version, rephrasing, render, translation. My comments on Galatians 3:19 are in practice. What purpose does the book of the law serve? It was added like a prosthetic limb to the book of the covenant because of transgressions, sins of the golden calf. Until what? This word signals impending change. The seed, meaning Yahusha, should come. The phrase book of the law does not appear until the end of the Torah. In Deuteronomy, the chapters 29 to 31. It says, take this book of the law and put it beside, meaning outside, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, that it may be there as a witness against you. See Deuteronomy 31-26. Because the book of the covenant was blood ratified at the mountain, Galatians tells us once a covenant is blood ratified, you cannot change it. You cannot take away one word from it, and you cannot add one word to it, because it is what? It is sealed. This is a wedding contract with Israel, but Israel broke the covenant. Yahuwah was going to wipe out the whole nation and start over with Moses. But Moses pleads and intercedes for them. So Yahuwah withholds his wrath, and he puts them under the book of the law, a mediator, a schoolmaster, a tutor, where they have to make much interest on the debt of sin by keeping on sacrificing animals, the shedding of the blood, and more blood for centuries. When Paul refers to these temporary laws in Galatians, he verifies these temporary laws are from the book of the law. This is a paradigm that most people do not understand. Yahuwah has two wills, a perfect will and a permissive will. Yahuwah's perfect will was that his people would live under the royal book of the covenant, the royal law, the royal Torah. But because of their transgression, he had no choice but to put them under the temporary book of the law. He said, I will now raise up a different priesthood from the sons of Aaron and the tribe of Levi that will mediate the law. From the beginning, Yahuwah intended the priesthood would be from the firstborn, all the tribes. This huge change will now be until what? Until the time of Reformation, when someone will come to give the perfect sacrifice and fulfill the death penalty of Genesis 15. Once that death penalty is paid, then each repentant one can be grafted back into the renewed oath that is sealed with better blood. It will be a restored covenant that will anoint each one to walk in royal Torah as kings and priests of a royal priesthood. There will be no more walking in the rabbinical book of the law, walking in the lawlessness, walking outside of the everlasting covenant, playing with blood, playing with all of the stuff of the nations, claiming the Messiah, but not walking in covenant. Now each one can be part of a kingdom of priests and the holy nation. To emphasize it again, the key to understanding this is that the book of the covenant is Yahuwah's perfect will. And the book of the law was added because of transgression of the book of the covenant. This new set of laws under a new priesthood was in place until what? Until the Messiah would come and pay the death penalty. Position of Genesis 15. This then allows all by faith to enter into the Melchizedek royal covenant. That covenant was sworn in, an oath, by Yahuwah himself. So the best news is, man can't mess up Yahuwah's original and unconditional covenant. The new covenant is truly for us today. The royal Torah, the royal law, it is a paradigm shift. No longer do we have to look at those verses in the New Testament saying, "Oh, the law is for the Jews only." Paul is just saying that since the Messiah is come, you are no longer under the book of the law, but you are to return to the book of the covenant, to the royal law that James speaks of. Finally, all the verses in the New Testament regarding any laws will make sense. But this will happen only when you understand what Paul is saying, that you are not under the book of the law anymore, but you are to return to the book of the covenant. Now, what does it mean to be living the covenant? That is everything you find from Genesis 1:1 to Exodus 24:11, which applies to the life of the Melchizedek people. Here, in the next few slides, is the book of the covenant detailed. I copied this from a website, www.torahnotes.org, but I was not able to contact this organization. But this is a very detailed listing of everything that falls under the book of the covenant. The covenant details, number 1, the Ten Commandments we find in Exodus 20:2-17. The first commandment, you shall have no other mighty ones, no other gods before me. Number 2, you shall not make for yourself a carved image. Number 3, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your Elohim in vain. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, set apart. Number 5, honor your father and your mother. Number 6, you shall not murder. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And number 10, you shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's. The altar, that's in Exodus 20:22-26. No man-made idols. Make an altar in the place I will show you, from earth or natural stone with no steps. Human relations, in Exodus 21:1-11. A male Hebrew servant is to be released in the 7th year. He leaves with the family he came in with. He may choose to be a bondservant to his master. A female Hebrew servant does not go out as a man would. If she does not please her master, she shall be redeemed. She cannot be sold to a foreigner. If she is betrothed to his son, if not obeyed, she shall be set free. She shall be treated as a daughter. If he takes another wife, she shall still be treated as a wife. Violence to other people. See Exodus 21:12-27. The premeditated murderer shall be put to death, but Yahuwah will provide a refuge for the unintentional killer. He who strikes his father or his mother shall be put to death. He who curses his father or his mother shall be put to death. A kidnapper shall be put to death. He who is injured in a fight is to be compensated for his lost time and medical expenses. A man shall be punished if he injures his servant to death, but no punishment if the servant lives 1 to 2 days, considered to be property. If the injury causes permanent disability, the servant is set free. The punishment of one who injures a pregnant woman, so she delivers prematurely, shall be determined by her husband. If she or the baby dies, the punishment is life for life. Violence concerning animals. You find that in Exodus 21, 28 to 36. An animal that kills a person shall be put to death, and the owner is not responsible, unless the owner knew beforehand, then he shall also be put to death. The owner of an animal that injures a person shall pay restitution, and the animal put to death. If a servant is injured, the owner shall pay the master 30 shekels of silver. If an animal falls into an open pit, the pit's owner shall reimburse the animal's owner, but the animal shall be the property of the pit's owner. If a man's animal kills another animal, then the live animal shall be sold and proceeds split unless it was known beforehand. Then the dead animal's owner receives 100%. Responsibility for property, Exodus 22, 1 to 15. Restitution for stolen ox must be 5 times. For stolen sheep, 4 times. If a man kills a thief in his home at night, he is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it is at daylight, then he is guilty of bloodshed. The thief shall restore to the owner double. If a man allows his animal to graze in his neighbor's field, he shall make restitution of the best of his fields. If a man accidentally burns his neighbor's field, he shall make restitution. If a thief steals something borrowed from your neighbor, and he is caught, he must restore double. If not caught, then the judge must decide if he stole it himself. If any property dispute, animals and things, brought to the judge, the guilty must restore double. If a man borrows an animal and it dies in his possession, swearing an oath to Yahuwah, then the owner must accept it. But if it was stolen, the guilty must make restitution. Or if it was killed by another animal, he shows the evidence and is free of responsibility. Or if the owner was present at time of death, he is free of responsibility. Moral and ceremonial principles according to Exodus 22, 16 to 31. If a man commits fornication with a virgin, he shall pay her father the bride price and marry her. If her father refuses, he shall pay him the bride price of a virgin. You shall not permit a sorceress to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall surely be put to death. Anyone who sacrifices to any Elohim other than Yahuwah shall be put to death. Do not mistreat a stranger, for you were once strangers in Egypt. Anyone who mistreats widows or orphans will be put to death. His wife will become a widow, and his children orphans. You shall charge no interest when you lend money to your brother. If you require his garments as a pledge, return it to him before sundown. Do not humiliate him. You shall not revile Yahuwah, nor curse a ruler of your people. Do not delay offering the firstfruits of your fields, nor from your herds and flocks. The firstborn shall be with its mother 7 days, then shall it be offered on the 8th day. The firstborn of your sons you shall give to me. You shall be holy to me. Eat no meat torn by beasts in the field. Equal justice. See Exodus 23, 1-9. Do not circulate a false report. Do not be a false witness. Do not follow a crowd to do evil. Do not testify falsely so as to pervert justice. Do not show partiality to a poor man in a dispute. Show kindness to your enemy's animals. Do not pervert the judgment of the poor in his dispute. Keep yourself far from a false matter. Do not kill the innocent and righteous. Do not take a bribe. Do not oppress a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Shabbats and Shmidas. See Exodus 23, 10-13. Neither sow nor reap the produce of the land in the 7th year. Let it rest. That which sprouts may feed the poor among you and the animals. Likewise 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that you, your animals, your servants, and the stranger among you may be refreshed. Guard what you speak. Make no mention of the name of another Elohim. The Moedim, Exodus 23, 14-19a. Passover, fully described in Exodus 12. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, included the Feast of First Fruits, the Feast of Harvest, also called Shavuot, the Feast of Ingathering, also called Sukkot. Excluded are trumpets and atonements. Through Yahuwah's covenant, our names are already written in the book of life. No judgment here. The blood of the sacrifice shall not be offered with leavened bread. The fat of the sacrifice shall not remain until morning. The dietary laws. See Exodus 23, 19b. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Do not offer sacrifices that were improperly killed. Note the context. Initially, vegetarian. Genesis 1:29. Yahuwah said, See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you it shall be for food. And confirmed after the fall. Genesis 3:18, and you shall eat the fruit of the field. Meat or flesh food added after the flood. See Genesis 9:3-4. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I've given you all things, even as the green herbs, but you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. So the connection is made in verse 3 from Edom. It had always been permissible to eat green herbs. Then Yahuwah ordained the eating of animals, but only those animals that would eat the green herbs. There was then 1 degree of separation added to the dietary laws: green herbs, and only those animals that ate green herbs. Yahuwah expected Noah to know clean from unclean. Yahuwah's protection and provision, Exodus 23:20-33. His son Yahusha: Behold, I send an angel before you to keep you in the way and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Obey his voice, for my name is in him. If you indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and be an adversary to your adversaries. When you serve Yahuwah, he will bless your bread and your water, take sickness away from you, cause no one to suffer miscarriage or be barren, fulfill the number of your days. Send his fear before you, cause confusion among your enemies, make all your enemies turn their backs to you. He will drive them out little by little, so that you may subdue the land. He will give you the land from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean to the Euphrates, and pagans will not dwell in it. The covenant ratified. Number one, reading the covenant. Then he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people, according to Exodus 24:7a. Number two, the agreement. Now the people answered, all the words which Yahuwah has said, we will do. Exodus 24:7b. Number three, the shedding of blood. Then he sent young men of the children of Israel, who offered burnt offerings and sacrifices, peace offering of oxen to Yahuwah. And Moses took half the blood and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. See Exodus 24:5-6. Number four, the covenant confirming meal. So they saw Yahuwah, and they ate and drank. That's in Exodus 24:11b. Now remember that the book of the covenant is Yahuwah's perfect will. The book of the law is Yahuwah's permissive will. Now we want to look at the established patterns from Genesis 1:1 to Exodus 24:11. Creation. All of Yahuwah's creation reproduced after his kind. The seed of the earth. See Genesis 1:11 and 12. The seed of animals. Genesis 1:24 and 25. Chapter 6:20 and chapter 7:14. Creation? Yes, absolutely yes. Evolution? No, absolutely no. Heterosexual marriages? See Genesis 2:24. All biblical marriages were between a man and a woman. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Sacrifice offerings were first fruits, thanksgiving, offering of Cain and Abel in Genesis 4, ascension or burnt offerings of Noah, dedication offerings, Genesis 8, ascension offering at Yittro's covenant meal, Exodus 18, ascension and peace, meaning fellowship offerings at Sinai in Exodus 20, ascension and peace offerings at Book of the Covenant ratification in Exodus 24:5. Note, there are no sin or trespass offerings anymore. Paul's interpretation: present your bodies a living sacrifice, your reasonable service. See Romans 12:1. Circumcision. Male circumcision is a sign of the covenant which was broken by Israel. See Genesis 17:9. Circumcision of the heart and the spirit is a sign of the new covenant. Romans 2:25-29. Homosexuality. Yahuwah judged Sodom because they condoned homosexuality. See Genesis 19:5. Everything we find written in the Book of the Covenant we find from Genesis 1:1 to Exodus 24, verse 11. A careful reading of Exodus 19 to Exodus 24:11 reveals conditions around the use of term Book of the Covenant. A similarly careful reading of Exodus 25 to Deuteronomy 31 reveals conditions around the term Book of the Law. This study is about rightly dividing the word of Yahuwah contained in Torah, distinguishing the difference between the Book of the Covenant and the Book of the Law. The Book of the Covenant. At Mount Sinai in Exodus 19, Yahuwah proposed marriage to Israel. The two parties entered into the wedding covenant, a ketubah, which is identified in Exodus 24 as a Book of the Covenant. It is a conditional covenant. You read in Exodus 19, 5b to 6a, "If you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Israel's status as a special treasure, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, is dependent upon their obedience to the covenant. If Israel is faithful to Yahuwah and keeps the covenant, then she will enjoy that special status. If not, then she loses that status and must pay the penalty for breaking covenant. In the remaining verses of chapter 19, Moses prepared the people to meet Yahuwah and to receive the covenant from him. Then, starting in chapter 20, Yahuwah dictated to Moses the specific terms of the covenant, and these covenant details continue to the end of chapter 23. Neither Abraham, Isaac, nor Jacob ever knew a Levite. All of them walked in the everlasting royal Torah. Today, neither should you and I walk in the rabbinical, Levitical hierarchy. This is not a personal opinion or idea. This command comes directly from the word of Yahuwah. Some people have a problem with Paul in the New Testament. There are basically three categories of believers that are having difficulty with Paul's writings, because none of them understand Paul writes about two different books and what their true purposes are and why. Paul was chosen by Yahuwah to teach the Gentiles because he is likely the only one that understood the importance of these two books and what their job description were. Therefore, Paul uses a very special lingo in his books, and if you pay attention to exactly what he is saying, you will know exactly which book he's talking about, either the book of the covenant or the book of the law. Now let's look at Sunday question. They say Paul throws out all the law, and they have their favorite verses. Yes, it sure sounds like they are right. And throw out go all the laws of Yahuwah, including the book of the covenant. They do not realize that Paul has only nailed the book of the law or laws to the cross. Now let's go to the Sabbath Christians. These are the ones that keep the Sabbath but have accepted the Messiah. Sabbath Christians that don't honor the feast say this: Paul doesn't nail the Ten Commandments to the cross, but he nails the feasts and festivals to the cross, along with the sacrifices and the Levitical priesthood. Well, they are in error as well, because the feasts and festivals are part of the book of the covenant and they have never been nailed to the cross. Now what about the Jewish believers? And there are all sorts. They say that none of the laws are nailed to the cross. As we know, the Jews want to bring back the temple, the sacrifices, these laws that were temporary in the book of the law and valid only until the cross, until the Messiah, Yahushua, came and gave his life for us. They even throw in circumcision, which has nothing to do with the book of the covenant or the book of the law. Circumcision of the flesh has nothing to do with salvation, but the circumcision of the heart does. Let's not forget that. Although let's be reminded of 1 Corinthians 7:19, circumcision is nothing, uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of Yahuwah. Circumcision was a token to enter the land, given to Abraham, and then given again to Joshua before they crossed the Jordan. Adam wasn't circumcised, neither was Noah and his sons. The three foregoing points of Sunday Christians, Sabbath Christians, and Jewish believers show how some try to nail all the laws to the cross, or put us under bondage to all the laws, as the Jews do. Much information in this article or this presentation has been gleaned from presentations by Matthew Nolan at Torah to the Tribes. For further study on this topic, I highly recommend the 17 presentations made by him on the book of Hebrews, as well as his most controversial teachings of the Melchizedek priesthood. Some people in the Hebrew roots movement are not favorable to these teachings because this message removes many of their 613 laws, their rebuilding of the third temple, and the rising of another Levitical priesthood. He also has an excellent teaching on Galatians chapter 5. It should be watched carefully. Every book that Paul has written should be read carefully with the book of the covenant and the book of the law lingo in mind. The average person will have no problem understanding this beautiful teaching. Matthew Nolan has also done a verse-by-verse study on most of Paul's books, if not all of them by now. With an investment of time in the Word, this cornerstone teaching of the Scriptures can be understood. It will change your life and bring you into a total restoration with our high priest of the Melchizedek order and his royal covenant. Shalom. The supreme provider is Yahushua HaMashiach. This message was prepared and recorded by myself, and you can reach me at Malachi 4.4 at meadowcreek.com, or you can go to my website, thefigtreegeneration.net or thefigtreegeneration.com. And if you agree with this message, please give me a thumb up.